Stephen from Chainsaw Ace back today with another video. Today we are installing a primer bulb on a Husqvarna 450 Rancher. These clips dry rot on these old saws and sometimes they break off. However, they still hold when clipped. Don't worry about that too much. Now we need to remove the air filter. Let's get this off. Now we need to remove the air filter mount with these 4 screws. This holds the carburetor on as well. Now let's remove it from the isolation dampeners here at the bottom with a flat-headed screwdriver like this. The ethanol and gasoline destroys pliable materials like primers and fuel lines. Now let's remove the fuel lines from the intake and output valves on the primer, noting their position for reassembly later. Squeeze these tabs to remove the primer. It'll pop right out. Here's a comparison of the old primer and the new. You can see the damage caused by the ethanol in the fuel. Now let's install the new primer by snapping it in. Make sure you have the valve stems oriented like the old one. Pro tip side note, the top part of the carburetor may fall off when removing the air filter mount. However, it's easy to reinstall. To make this process as easy as possible, I use a zip tie to hold the throttle wide open. This will move the throttle body into the correct position, making the reinstall easier. Here you can see the throttle body that we will need to fit the linkage through. The linkage will go in with some simple maneuvering. Just fit it in just like this. Now place the top part of the carburetor back into its spot. Now let's cut the zip tie and give the throttle a test to make sure it functions correctly. Now let's reinstall the fuel lines back onto the input and output stems on the primer bulb. Make sure that we do it in the same orientation as the old one. If not, your primer will not work. Now let's give the primer a test to make sure it primes, and it does. We have the lines installed correctly. Now let's reinstall the air filter mount. Just place it into place and make sure you put the isolation buffers in on each side, just like this. Now let's reinstall the 4 mounting screws. Now it's time to reinstall the air filter. Make sure you clamp it into place. And finally, reinstall the top of the chainsaw and try not to break any of these fragile clips. They will break if you're not careful. And there you have it. That's how you install a primer bulb on a Husqvarna 450 Rancher. Thanks for watching.